CBS Sports put out a graphic of teams that most likely could land Myles Garrett. The Bengals were one of them. I was like, there's no way. Absolutely no way.
I saw the
Really
Bengals were in the top 5 for Cooper Kupp and Kyle Pitts as well. So it's going to be a big offseason for the Bengals. You extend Jamar, you trade for Cooper Kupp, you extend T, you extend Trey Hendrickson, you trade for Myles Garrett.
That's why these projections. It's why these projections don't mean anything.
Let's just have a Steelers offseason, but actually sign the people we're linked to.
Would be great.
That'd be really cool.
That'd be fun.
What did you think of the Kyle Pitts one, though? Because, I don't think that's a terrible – again, it goes back to the Bengals.
This is Kyle Pitts' #1 fan.
I'm a big Kyle Pitts guy.
I think he stinks, and nobody's been able to figure him out. So if he wants to come to Cincinnati for cheap, then sure, I'll take anybody, literally at the tight end position.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a realistic option.
Is Gesicki back next year?
I would be absolutely shocked if Gesicki's not back next year. Something that was a little bit interesting. T Higgins posted a picture of Mike Gesicki, Bengals uniform, one of his posts from this past year on his Instagram story a couple days ago. Or earlier today, maybe late last night. I saw it this morning. So just two guys that are free agents at the top of the list of people to return, posting about each other in Bengals uniforms. Who knows? Maybe exciting stuff.
If T is gone and Gesicki's there, obviously he got a lot of play. I mean, he got a lot more wide receiver looks than he did tight end looks this past season. Do you change the usage of Gesicki? Because not going to lie, down the stretch in those games T wasn't there, his production started to increase as the season went on, not being used as much in that tight end position.
I bet if he were to come back, I think they would try to go to him more as wide receiver 3. Because the beginning of the season, I think they were trying to figure out what the offense was. T Higgins wasn't there. Jamar Chase was dealing with whatever he was dealing with at the beginning of the season. And I think right when, I don't know, was that week 4 or 5, Mike Gesicki really started to come on. And I would venture to say that he should line up more as wide receiver next season, just because we know what we've got there. We got a consistent pass-catching option opposed to, no disrespect, Drew Sample, who does nothing.
Yeah, I think that Mike Gesicki's a pretty crucial piece to return, just so you don't have to ask for a lot more out of Yoshivas or anything like that. But I think if T Higgins leaves, the Bengals are taking a wide receiver in the first round or trading for someone that's really, really good.
They should.
There is no way they're going into next season with Jamar Chase as their 1 and Andre Yoshivas as their 2, or Mike Gesicki in this sense as their 2. That's what I think a lot of people are forgetting or discounting or saying isn't necessary, but that's what the Bengals would do. If you let T walk, you're taking someone at 17.
This is why I make this argument. And this is what I agree with you 100%. If we're all saying that if our intention is to let T Higgins walk, then our #1 priority this year would then be to replace T Higgins.
Right.
Why not just bring T Higgins back?
A lot of people are saying you don't need 2 wide receivers. I think they haven't watched enough Bengals football.
I agree. The logic doesn't make sense. If you lose T Higgins, you absolutely have to draft a wide receiver with your first pick this year. And then, but you can negate all of that by just bringing him back. So why not just bring him back and we'll just help the defense with the #1 pick? I don't get it.
And I know you and Craig, obviously, I'm sure as we get closer to the draft, everyone right away says, well, if T goes, you replace him with that first-round pick, of course. But, what does – and I don't know if you guys have taken a look at this because I haven't. When we talk about free agency, we constantly do the Cooper Cup. We go big every time, right?
Sure.
But even with the Reds, we've learned – we're not talking about Juan Soto heading into free agency. Hey, the Reds, they're going to add additions. We don't even go that route. So let's not go that route with Cooper Kupp. It's usually we're pretty realistic if the guys that the Reds could financially target or it fits what they do. Have you taken a look at all, Jake, of any of the free agent wide receivers, like those mid-level guys like Mike Williams last year, like those level of wide receivers that make sense for Cincinnati based on how they operate? Maybe not make sense as far as what's best, but based on how they operate, like those level of wide receivers, could you see that being something that they go get to be wide receiver 2 and then get a receiver later in the draft and not use it for their first round?
Yeah, the players in that mid-level, I mean, Tyler Boyd signed a 1-year deal with Tennessee. You're looking to bring him back. I don't think a lot of those guys do what you want to do if you let T Higgins walk. You have Brandon Cooks, Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins on a 1-year deal in Kansas City. I don't think any of those guys are worth bringing in on a 1-year deal or a mid-level deal. I think if you let T Higgins walk, in all honesty, you're looking at the Chris Godwin level, the Keenan Allen level of a replacement receiver at free agency. I think you're spending almost $20 million on a free agent, and T Higgins you're saving 8, 6 at that point, which is why I think the conversation is just so easy. The other component of that would be taking someone later in the draft, not using #1, and using your 3rd or 4th round pick on a wide receiver. But once you get down there, that's a lot of risk. That's a lot of risk to draft someone in the 3rd or 4th round and ask them to be your wide receiver 2 when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. So I don't think that's a route the Bengals would go. I do think it's either extending T Higgins, using pick 17, or trading for someone that is a relatively bigger name. And I'm not necessarily saying Cooper Kupp. The one I keep throwing out there just because it makes sense monetarily and the organizations have a relationship is Calvin Ridley in Tennessee. I think that level of player is kind of where the Bengals would look if they let T Higgins walk. People in the chat spamming all caps saying you don't need 2 elite wide receivers. Again, I would just say you haven't watched enough of the Bengals and Zach Taylor's offense because it doesn't work without 2 elite wide receivers. If the Bengals were going to let T Higgins walk and use a different scheme and change the offense, they should have fired Zach Taylor and went about it that way. But since Zach Taylor is still the coach, you absolutely do need 2 elite wide receivers in this offense, or you at least need 2 very good wide receivers in this offense. And if you don't have that, it won't look pretty.
Amari Cooper, the Bills. I mean, that was just a one. I mean, he's going to be available too. Like, where does that name fall in a list of guys that would make sense? Based on what I saw this past year, I don't think it makes sense at all. But if there's something left in the tank,
here's where I'll give you some kudos, Kinner. Hand up, I was wrong about that one. I thought Amari Cooper was going to be better in Buffalo. He didn't fit that offense at all. It wasn't involved in that offense at all. I don't want Amari Cooper on the Bengals. I'm all good there. I think he's had a great career. It's a shame of how it's a shame with how it ended, given the last year or so. But I think that story's been written, unfortunately.